Hours of sharing 旅人ASEAN。
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you're listening to ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. To start off our news for our Tuesday morning is a news regarding on the Greek debt crisis. Apparently, Malaysia and Singapore will lead Southeast Asian market decline on the Greek debt fears. Ringgit at a 10-year low. Major Southeast Asian stock markets fell yesterday as fears of a Greek debt default prompted foreign outflows, sending the Malaysian index to an over 6-month low, while the Indonesian benchmark fell to a near 2-week low. Kuala Lumpur's composite index was down 1.1% at 1,691.92. The lowest close since December 17, with 25 out of 30 stocks listed on the index sliding. Selling also hit the ringgit while traded at a 10-year low. Singapore's key Straits Times index shed 1.2% to 3,280.18, the lowest close since December 19. While Jakarta's composite index was down 0.8% at 4,882.58, the lowest close since June 16, taking its year-to-date loss to 6.7%, Asia's worst performing index, following by Malaysia's 3.9% decline, the second worst. While foreign investors have sold Indonesian shares worth a net 394 billion rupiah, or worth $29.54 million, and offloaded Malaysian shares worth a net 105 million ringgit, or equivalent to $27.76 million. On the other hand, Manila-based Regina Capital expected a stock market volatility in the Philippines to continue in the near term. This is mostly psychological, but market volatility should remain, since the initial reaction of fund managers is to shift to safe havens. And European shares sank almost 4%, and government bonds yield in Italy, Spain and Portugal jumped on yesterday as investors price in a growing risk that Greece will be the first country to leave the euro. On the other hand, positive news from Japan. So solar plane embarks on flights across Pacific Ocean. Solar Impulse 2 takes off from Japan in potential record-breaking flights across the Pacific to Hawaii. And a solar-powered aircraft has now passed the point of no return on the record-breaking attempts to fly all across the Pacific Ocean from Japan to Hawaii. The team behind the Solar Impulse 2 were forced to wait almost 2 months from a break in the weather. A Twitter by Solar Impulse was tweeted at Solar Impulse. And it stated that breaking news, Andrea Borchberg is flying towards Hawaii, live on solarimpulse.com. And the plane, which has a wingspan bigger than a jumbo jet, took off from Nagoya airfield in Japan at 6:03 GMT on Sunday. On Monday morning, it was off the east coast of Japan, and all going well, it is scheduled to land in Hawaii in approximately 120 hours. Live video for the cockpit of the plane is being broadcast on YouTube and showing the pilot Andrea Bochberg wearing an oxygen mask and thick flight clothes to protect him from the cold. Solar Impulse 2 left Abu Dhabi on March 9 and has since flown 7 legs on 13 in an attempt to be the first single-man solar-powered plane to fly around the world. The plane is powered entirely by the 17,248 solar panel on its wings. The 5-day leg from Japan to Hawaii is regarded as the most challenging part of the journey. In fact, according to the project's managing director, Gregory Blatt, telling Al Jazeera that if they did a 5-day flight across a continent and they encounter any problems, be it weather, operational issues, there's an alternate airport that they can land. Crossing the Pacific, there's no alternate airport, so that's what keeps him up at night. That's what keeps up the team, the engineers, the pilots. This is the first ever. Are they going to be able to make it? Well, that's according to Gregory Blatt to answer. If successful, the 120 plus hours flight to Hawaii will be the longest solo flight in aviation history. It will also break records for being the longest distance flown by an aircraft powered only by the sun. On the other hand, also regarding on solar, but this time is solar farming, Araneta, a company, will be building Southeast Asia's biggest solar farm. Gregoria Araneta Inc. on yesterday said that it intends to build what is possibly the biggest solar farm in Southeast Asia as the real estate firm diversifies further into the renewable energy sector. The company plans to build a 100 megawatt facility in Caldiz City, Negros Occidental, at an estimated cost of $175 million. The solar farm is expected to start feeding the national grid with renewable energy by 2016. Araneta unveiled the planned project only months after the company's 30 megawatt facility in Ormoc, Leyte, started supplying power to the national grid on March. The government approved Ormoc project, which cost $50 million, was built through a partnership between Araneta and Singapore-based Solec. Because of its upbeat perception of the renewable energy sector, Araneta said that it aims to replicate its success in real estate in the power industry. According to Gregoria Araneta III, Chief Executive Officer of the company Araneta, that they want to be agents of change in the energy sector by investing in renewable energy projects. That's all from our news. We will be returning back in a while after this song.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, you're back again with me, Arlene, on our ASEAN Daily. So, regarding on the refugee crisis in Myanmar, especially regarding on the Rohingya crisis, China and India are sitting out of the refugee crisis. When a deadly earthquake rocked Nepal in April, China and India rushed to send relief supplies and search and rescue teams. But when another humanitarian crisis, which is the boat bearing thousands of migrants, appeared off Southeast Asian shores a month later, Asia's two most populous countries said and did nothing. Instead, efforts to resettle the migrants came from Gambia and the United States. The wealthiest nations in the Asia Pacific stood back as well. Australia declared it would not resettle the migrants, mostly Rohingya Muslims fleeing religious persecution in Myanmar or poor Bangladeshis seeking jobs. Japan, on the other hand, pledged 3.5 million in emergency assistance, but also refrained from offering to take any of the displaced people. More than a month after Malaysia and Indonesia agreed to provide temporary shelter for up to 7,000 migrants stranded at sea, there has been no sign of progress in finding them a permanent home, nor any hint that Myanmar would address the conditions driving the Rohingya exodus. And Asia's most powerful nations are essentially sitting out of the crisis. Their passivity is all the more striking because halfway around the world, European leaders have been actively debating a response to their own migrant crisis, in which more than 1,700 people from Africa and the Middle East have died trying to cross the Mediterranean this year. President Xi Jinping of China and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India often present their nations as emerging global powers, promoting regional cooperation. Both countries also share a border with Myanmar and enjoy economic leverage as major trading partners, and in China's case, as a top source of foreign investment. But neither has pressured the government on its treatment of the Rohingya or played a significant role in efforts to resettle them. During a meeting, the United Nations Security Council last month, China in fact insisted that the matter was an internal one for Myanmar to resolve. The Rohingya issue is a complex multilateral issue. This is according to Zachary Abuza, an analyst with a consultancy from Southeast Asia Analytics. The governments in Southeast Asia want it to go away, but they are unwilling to solve it. The irony, and China and India could play a leadership role, but see it as a losing issue that would diminish their clout and bilateral interests. No country has more leverage over Myanmar than China, even if it's diminished in the past 4 years. But China sees the Rohingya problem as such a toxic one in Southeast Asia that it is unwilling to make a deal of the issue itself, while on the other hand, India has helped absorb past waves of refugees fleeing borders, wars, and political repression in Myanmar, providing sanctuary to Burmese pro-democracy activists through decades of military rule. But hosting more than 10,000 Rohingya who fled earlier spat of violence against them, they seem to be not as actively wanting to do so. And India also have refrained from criticizing Myanmar, and which has adopted a policy of grudging tolerance towards Rohingya arrivals rather than engagement. Analysts and refugees advocates have been somehow very much concerned about this. Some government officials have expressed fear that Rohingya Muslims in India might be infiltrated by jihadis. And India sort of stayed away from this whole thing, and that's disappointing. Definitely is disappointing, especially according to Southeast Asia Director of Human Rights Watch, Meenakshi Ganguly, referring to the most recent crisis. If India wants to be more careful in maintaining its strategic and economic influence, they better take care of the issue of human rights, especially their neighboring countries in Southeast Asia. On the other hand, we have a long, I would say, unsolvable issue regarding on the South China Sea. This time with the Philippines. Philippines have halted repairs on Spratlys airstrip ahead of UN suit. It had stopped repairs of its airstrip in the disputed islands to uphold the principle of keeping the status quo in the areas involved. The Philippines has definitely halted its airstrip in the Spratlys Islands due to its pending suit at The Hague, challenging China's claim over the waters a presidential spokesman said last weekend. The work on the airstrip on T2 Island, which is Philippines called Pagasa, and which hosts a small community, comes as China builds up outcroppings in the waters into islands that can host military facilities. The repair has been stopped because they want to uphold the principle of keeping the status quo in the area involved. And this is part of their strategy for a rules-based and diplomatic approach where they have filed an arbitration case with the UN tribunal. On the other hand, China seems to be hesitating to go to the International Criminal Court of Justice over South China Sea disputes. ASEAN representatives have urged China to speed up negotiation on the code of conduct in the South China Sea to move another step forward and settle territorial disputes. From the perspective of ASEAN as small countries, they are concerned of the South China Sea disputes and geopolitics in this region on how it could affect us. This is according to Malaysia's Wawasan Open University Pro-Chancellor Tan Sri Dr. Koh Su Kon. He said if the disputes could not be solved through negotiation, it could be taken to the International Court of Justice in The Hague. If China is so confident about its historical and legal basis of the claims in the disputed water, why does it hesitate to go to the International Court of Justice? Dr. Koh Su Kun was speaking at a forum team, the Southeast Asian Conflict and Security Cooperation. While yesterday, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that China was a large seafaring nation 1,000 years ago, and hence, for sure, China was the first country to discover, use, and administer the Spratlys Islands, or known as Nansha Islands in Chinese. But on the other hand, Tan Sri Dr. Koh Su Kun said that all ASEAN countries has accepted the International Court of Justice as a common platform to resolve problems. And on the other hand, besides that, Indonesia vows to work for peace and stability in the South China Sea. Indonesia, which is not a clement country in the South China Sea vows to work for peace and stability in the South China Sea. They see their role as a neutral role in dealing with the South China Sea crisis and want all potential conflict into an exercise in joint cooperation in managing the resources of the South China Sea. Everybody is worried about the latest situation in the South China Sea, and we will turn potential conflict into cooperation, which is not new to us. We hope that the South China Sea will turn into a stable and calm region. This is according to Indonesia Foreign Minister Retno LP Marsudi during the opening remark at the high-level international workshop on managing the South China Sea conflict from the ASEAN perspective. And based on the controversial 9-line map, China claims more than 80% of the 3.5 million square kilometer region of the South China Sea. Other countries that also is part of the claimant countries are Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and the issue regarding on the South China Sea, according to the speakers at the forum itself, is that it is one of the most complicated issues facing ASEAN nation. China's unilateral claims on the South China Sea and its intention to use hard power to pursue its geostrategic ambitions is threatening Southeast Asian stability and security. While on the other hand, South Korea is also voicing out. South Korea holds significant stake in the South China Sea issue. And this is according to a former top American diplomat, William Burns, who is now the president of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He also said with Yongshap News Agency that Seoul and Washington share a vision of the rule of the road that should guide behaviors of the South China Sea. Seoul's interest in making sure that freedom of navigation and global commons are protected and secure and predictable has only gotten more and more significant. They always thought that South Korean government has been quite clear about its interest in seeing the kind of arrangement, whether it's the South China Sea or someplace else. The U.S. has been strongly critical of China's forceful assertion of its territorial claims in the South China Sea, as Beijing has been building artificial islands in the disputed waters, also claimed by other countries in Southeast Asia. Washington has been drumming up international pressure over China on the issue. Earlier this month, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russell urged South Korea to speak out against China's behavior, saying Seoul is a major stakeholder in the international order in which it has thrived. The U.S. and South Korea share the vision for the region and the rules of the road that should guide behaviors, whether it is in the South China Sea or in the cyberspace. Translating the vision into practice through enhanced regional cooperation and adapted regional institutions and global norms will require concerted U.S. and South Korean leadership. We will take another one short break. When we return, we will discuss more on issues regarding on economics and socio-cultural in Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies, first and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, you're back with me, Arlene, on our ASEAN Daily. So, to continue our news today regarding on India. India envisages more vigorous engagement with Southeast Asia. This is according to Sushma Swaraj. He says that the Indian government have engaged closely with India's neighbors, strengthening bilateral ties with major countries. On Sunday, last weekend, she described Thailand as a valuable partner in the Act East policy and said India envisages a more vigorous and proactive engagement with a strategic and economically vibrant Southeast Asia region as part of its efforts to reposition India at the world stage. According to her, that their government is resolved to move with a great sense of priority speed to implement the Act East policy. This is according, of course, to Sushma Swaraj, External Affairs Minister for India. And she was in Bangkok, and during an interaction with the Indian business leaders, India definitely envisages a more vigorous and proactive engagement. And with that, she said that India's Look East policy of the last 2 decades has been elevated to Act East policy, from looking to acting, under the leadership of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. She's also happy to say that they have reached a new milestones in their global outreach and made significant achievement in the last 1 year in transforming India's relationship with the outside world. On the other hand, for South Korea, definitely it is cozying up to China. South Korea's economy has taken a beating due to Seoul's frayed ties with Tokyo, and South Korea's pop culture craze in Japan has also lost some of its fees. Since then, South Korean President Lee Myung-bak visited the Takeshima Islands in Shimane Prefecture in 2012, while last year, 2.28 million Japanese tourists visited South Korea, a drop of 35% from 2012. Direct flights linking Japan and the tourist resort in Jeju Island will be discontinued in October, the first of such suspension since a service from Osaka to Jeju was launched in 1981. Nevertheless, the economic doldrum have resulted in Seoul accelerating moves to cozying it up to China. In 2013, China eclipsed Japan as the trading partner of Seoul by value and overtook the US in 2004 to become South Korea's top trading partner. In 2014, bilateral trade with China accounted for 21% of Seoul's total trade. While June 1 this year, China and South Korea formally signed a bilateral free trade agreement. Of course, South Korea President Park Geun-hye has high expectation for this pact, saying that this will become a historic milestone which will further deepening the strategic cooperation partnership between the two countries. It seems like definitely China will be the most significant economic partner for South Korea, at least starting from this year. Especially China is expanding its economic and political power, and for South Korea, definitely they do not want to miss the bandwagon. On the other hand, news about AirAsia. AirAsia now is under pressure from short sellers. Short sellers are targeting AirAsia amid accounting worries at Asia's biggest budget carrier, with its shares among the most borrowed securities in Southeast Asia in recent weeks. And loan stocks for AirAsia rose to a high of 47 million shares on June 23rd from 7 million 2 weeks prior to that. This means that sentiment towards AirAsia's shares, which slumped by as much as a third since June 9 and wiped off nearly $500 million of the airline's market value, has worsened, despite AirAsia's Group Chief Executive Tan Sri Tony Fernandes' recent assertions that the carrier has a solid balance sheet and business plan. We have seen that people borrowed the stock, which thus indicates that there are short sellers out there taking an increasing interest in AirAsia. This is according to Madeleine Prout, Senior Relationship Manager at SunGard Xtech Analytics. Concern about AirAsia came to the fore after a June 10 report by little-known GMT Research said that airline uses related party transaction with loss-making associate carriers to boost the earning. It also said that the carrier needed $1.9 billion in funding. And with that, we have another news regarding on the garment industry in, of course, Southeast Asia, focusing on Cambodia. Garment workers' lives are worth more than fashion industry profits. This month, in response to union requests, Cambodia's government is scheduling more talks to address garment workers' demands for a pay increase to $177 a month. Low pay and horrible working conditions are a worldwide problem for garment workers. The workers are the only variable in the textile supply chain that can be manipulated by clothing brands for increased profits at the cost of human worth. In 2014, Cambodia's government security forces killed 5 when they attacked garment workers while they were protesting for low pay. It's one of the string of tragedies worldwide that have hit garment workers hard. Besides that, a positive news regarding on internet network. Vietnamese invested company inaugurates 4G networks in Laos. Star Telecom, a joint venture between Laos Asia Telecom Company and Vietnam's Viettel Company Group, officially inaugurates its 4G network service in Vientiane, Laos on June 23rd. On the other hand, on socio-cultural news, Chong Wei wins Canada Open in back-to-back victory. Malaysia's national badminton ace Datuk Lee Chong Wei achieved a back-to-back victory after clinching the 2015 Canada Open in Calgary today. He recently bagged the United States Open, took only 35 minutes to beat Angus Ankalong of Hong Kong. And the victory is certainly a big boost to this 32-year-old Penang Penang night, and we at Durian ASEAN want to congratulate him for being putting more Malaysia in the map again in badminton. That's all for our news today. We hope that you can always listen to us for our news tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow we have our news from Monday to Friday. And of course, you can always catch us up on our podcasts in YouTube, and we are also on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can always catch us on the go by downloading our TuneIn app and listen to us at Durian ASEAN.